Hi everyone, it's time to get back on the firewall and get it painted. Hi everyone, welcome to the channel about kit cars and other car topics. If you like what you see, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Hit the notification bells and share with others. So as you saw before, I started working on the firewall, got it primered, ready to go, and then all of a sudden my buddy Greg was coming over to help me with getting all the alignment and the body, dialed in. And so I had to put him back on the car. Well, it's now at that time where I'm trying to find things to move forward, and it's time to actually pull the firewall out of the car, get it painted, and start moving on with the project. So that's what we're going to start doing, and let's hop to it. All right, there we have it. Everything all sanded up. I chose to do this by hand because I wanted to get a feel of what it's like to, not use an electric sander and actually do, what the car is going to be like when I go to sand it. So I wanted to do this all by hand, even though these are flat plates and I could have done it otherwise. But all in all, everything went well, and we're going to get ready to shoot in a few days and finish this up. So it's a different day. I'm getting ready to spray the firewall, and there's a few things going on. One is the temperatures are just extremely high right now. We're looking at around 108, 109 degrees. So at 6 a.m. it's already 81 degrees. By 9 it's 91 degrees. So I'm going to try to get out of here as early as possible tomorrow morning and shoot my stuff. Now, originally I was going to shoot in the backyard, just like you saw with the spray can shells that I did and sprayed red. However, while I was editing that video and reviewing it, I'm just watching that spray go all over the place. And that doesn't bother me as much as the wind. That's how much wind is happening, and dust blowing and all that kind of stuff that I really don't want to deal with when it comes to my firewall. For my spray can shelves, could care less. For my firewall, no, not so much. So I'm deciding that since I only have a few parts of spray and they're small, I'm going to try to shoot inside. And so there's going to be, some limitations with that. I need to cover up a bunch of stuff, make sure that, I'm not getting this hard 2K paint curing on a bunch of things with overspray. But hopefully we can get this done and not be too much of an issue. So I'm going to prepare for that tonight, kind of clean out the garage, get things, all dust as much as I can out, and cover stuff up, and then start setting up the panels and get the panels kind of ready to go beside its final, wax and grease remover and, dusting. But I am going to be using the new compressor, which is kind of nice to have. It's been great actually using it with my grinders and stuff like that, so I've been really happy with the purchase. It's been phenomenal so far. So let's hop to it. All right, so if you were watching closely, you might have noticed that I didn't actually clear coat the panels. I clear coated my little small parts, which actually came out phenomenal. But the actual panels, I had some issues. So the first thing is when I first started spraying, I noticed some mottling happening, and that's where you see different patches of darker spots, if you will. And I realized that my gun wasn't set up right. And so I really spent some time getting the fan, the pressure, and all that correct. And once I figured that out and started blasting it on there, it actually, fixed that issue. So that was good. And in the past, I've had like my buddy Greg set up my guns when I was at his booth, and I kind of wrote down those settings, so I always had a starting point. Because when you're spraying a panel and when you're spraying a small part, you want totally different settings, different pressures, different everything basically. But I use this little piece of cardboard down here, and I really spent a lot of time, even with paint thinner originally beforehand, just dialing in stuff, understanding how that gun works. And in the past, I've never wanted to do that because I already spent $100 on like 3 ounces of paint, and like I'm just gonna blow it just trying to learn my gun. But that is kind of the process. That's what you have to do. So of course you could use paint thinner to try to figure it out for the most part, but it's not really until you actually do this and spray that you learn the craft. But what actually happened is when I originally did the primer before, I think I mentioned that it was too spitty and it kind of went on a little bit too thick. And I think that's part of it being too hot, so I didn't have it thinned out as much. Plus I didn't have a real compressor to blast that stuff out. So that kind of screwed me. So when I sanded the other day, what I thought was fully sanded, it was not, and it wasn't apparent until I actually sprayed on the color, and then all of a sudden I could see like divots and different things like that just looked really rough. And what's funny is I was like, hey, I'm gonna hand sand this because I really want to learn, how this is gonna go and all that stuff, and I got exactly what I wished for. I'm learning. So this is kind of a delicate situation because once you're in a stage like this, and thank God I didn't clear coat it, now we have chemical adhesion problems. If we try to sand this, it's just going to gunk up the sandpaper and cause more issues. Like once you start the process, it's kind of hard to get out of it. And so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to let this cure for like 2 days. Do maybe a gray pad, like just a scratch pad, and just kind of lightly buff it out. And then luckily I'm using the same reducer for the color and paint as I am the build primer. And so hopefully because of that, I can actually spray on the build primer and not have any peeling or any kind of weird effects, which should be really apparent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, scratch this stuff up in a few days, and I'm going to mix up my build primer, and I'm going to spray it, and within a minute, I'm going to know whether it's just a chemical disaster or whether I'm fine, and then just keep going with the process. And then I'm probably going to be doing another 2 or 3 coats, very thin though, very reduced, especially because it's hot out too, and re-sand all this stuff, redo it right. And I'm not really sure if I need to come back when it comes to actually spraying and do a sealer coat. That might be best. So, it's just tough to do all these stages when you're not in a proper booth, and you want to park your car in, and you got certain time deadlines, and you're working 80 hours a week and all that kind of stuff, which my schedule has gotten crazy again. So seems like the world's craziness is kind of gotten back to normal. And so I don't know, I'm going to try to do the best I can. But the one thing I'm really proud of is, I sat there and I was looking at the panels and I was ready to spray the clear coat, and I'm like, man, it looks pretty good, but it doesn't, right? And I said, no, I said a long time ago, do not throw it away at the last second on the paint. Just don't throw it away. and I'm not going to. And so I stopped and I didn't do the clear coat, and I'm really glad I did, that I'm holding my guns, calling it a learning process. Yeah, it's going to take more time, but hey, you know, I'm better because of it. So I'm just really happy that I did stop. And yeah, it sucks that it's going to take me another week, possibly 2 weeks to fix this issue, but I want this to be show car pretty, you know, and this ain't it. So those parts look great. And those parts that I did, all they have is the epoxy primer on them, because I don't need to build it up and do any kind of crazy stuff. So the epoxy primer, whenever I shoot on that, it's flawless. And, you know, all my suspension parts and all that stuff, you know, that's all epoxy primer, no build primer or anything like that. So this is really my first time using the build primer, and didn't go so well. So it is what it is. I'm going to move on from it, but I'm going to keep working on this over the next, you know, few days and get this thing finished and get it back on the car. So it's really interesting, because when you look at the panel, you're like, man, it looks fine. And then all of a sudden you hit the right angle and boom, you could just see all this kind of pitting or whatever here, where right here it looks perfectly smooth, and then all these little divots. So that's pretty much all from that build primer. Just when I shot it on, it ended up being like, I don't know, 36 grit sandpaper is what it looked like, just speckled on this thing. It wasn't smooth and thin and flush and laid out. And I know it's not supposed to be fully flush because it is a build primer, but it really just caused some issues. And I know it's hard to see in certain light, but yeah, you can see it right there. It's just speckled. Then you come over here. Let's see. Yeah, no, it's just speckled. Yeah, right here is the smoothest spot. Looks fine right here, and then it just goes speckled. So, luckily I caught it, and just wanted to show you that. Have a great day.